is Tyson's son. The man who owned the venue and the man who was over the record label and all that shit that Juvenile was fucking with. This is his son.
People try to spin it for Juvenile's image, and they try to make it seem like, nah, Juve gave your dad $50,000 for a studio, for him to be able to put a studio inside the club. Nah, that wasn't really how that happened. Juvenile pulled up in a red Ford Taurus back then.
So he had some hands in on No Limit when No Limit got started or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, from what I understand, yeah, he was a part of No Limit whenever they started. Yeah, that's what I've been told.
Tyson just disappeared. I just found out Tyson died.
And the next thing you know, my dad ends up dead, but there's a $2.5 million deal on the table and $1 million insurance policy. That's when they found the injections through the toes, like right between the toes. They found injections from a needle. Okay, which only can be done. You have to use a needle. Dr. Joe had 5 other business partners before my dad. 5 of them. They all died the same way. Every single one of them had insurance policies. Every single one of them died the same way, from a drug overdose and a gunshot wound.
This is Tyson's son. All right? The man who owned the venue and the man who was over the record label and all that shit that Juvenile was fucking with. This is his son.
And I'm Lil Tyson, also known as, Tysen Jr. I grew up, everybody called me Lil Tyson, Lil Danny.
Who was your dad, bro?
And my dad was Danny Tyson. He was the owner of the Venue nightclub on Chapatulas. And he was the owner of AQP/UTP Records.
Where's your dad from?
My dad's from New Orleans, from the West Bank.
The venue, what was the venue in New Orleans?
On Chapatulas. It was in the warehouse district, business district. It was a warehouse, and it was the only club on Chapatulas in the business district. It had a hip hop night. It had an Asian night. It had ladies night. It had everything. I mean, from techno singers coming in to perform on stage to rappers in there performing on stage. I mean, my dad even held boxing events inside of the venue.
Tyson is the white man who was over the venue. Y'all remember him? Yeah, where Juvenile Studio used to be, where BTY Youngin and all them used to be at, where Mr. Mean and Kango Slim used to be at. That's now y'all about to see why this about to be a good interview.
Take us from scratch, bro. If you had to explain your pops, I'm gonna let you have it. And
if I had to explain my pops, man, just from growing up, he started working 2 jobs. He was hustling. He was DJing. He was doing all of it, man. He started out as a DJ at Rick's Cabaret on Bourbon Street. He opened up the Big Bad Wolf when he was like 22 years old, 23. Became a millionaire around 25. Okay, that's when he got the venue. That's when he was like, okay. And then people started stealing from the Big Bad Wolf. So he ended up, closing that shit down and starting something fresh. That's when he found the warehouse on Chapatulas. And then that's when he opened up the venue. Had 10,000 square foot dance floor, 7 VIP rooms. Rick Ross had his own VIP room. It was a Playboy room. There was a Miami room. I mean, there was a bunch of different VIP rooms with a VIP bar. There was everything. It was luxury, magnificent. It was crazy. It was over the top. He met Joe Mogan, which was the doctor, which was the business partner, right? He was a silent business partner. He met him at Harrah's at the casino. All right. Joe wanted to invest, into my dad's projects and into what he had going on. My dad was young, man. My dad was, probably, he was in his 20s, late 20s, getting ready to go into maybe his early 30s. And, he didn't really, this dude come in talking about, he has money. He had a Testarossa Ferrari whenever he met my dad. My dad was just driving around in his 92 or 93 Viper at the time. He wanted to, he came in and wanted to invest. Come to find out, about that, long story short, it was really just about him being able to wash the money that he was getting from the pain clinics, and he was pushing it into the club. That way, on the weekend, all that money was washed and now it's all clean. And my pops didn't know at first that that's what he was doing. All right. Then eventually he understood what was going on and he started realizing what was going on. And he was contacted, by like the FBI and shit like that because they was all looking into Dr. Joe. Dr. Joe had 5 other business partners before my dad. 5 of them. They all died the same way. Every single one of them had insurance policies. Every single one of them died the same way from a drug overdose and a gunshot wound. It's crazy, bro. If you like, it's crazy, bro.
And understand how extravagant the club was, that definitely will open a lot of doors to other things. And so I was going to say, how did he get into the music scene in New Orleans?
Yeah, I mean, my dad grew up in the music scene, man. I mean, it was You know what I'm saying? He was a DJ, and back in the day, they was hustling CDs. They was, trying to get DJs to play the music. There was, all that, and then, eventually, next thing you know, I'm going to school, and everybody's like, oh my God, you're Tyson's son. You're Tyson's son. Blah blah blah. He messes with this dude. He messes with that dude. I went to school with somebody that was related to Master P that knew who I was before I even knew who they was because my dad was messing with No Limit. That's why my dad had the No Limit chain. You know what I'm saying? And then, yeah, I mean, it is just there's a lot to that. You know what I'm saying? As far as, him getting into the industry, I think he got into the industry just by DJing, really. And then people really just fucking with him off of the strength of, him being a good DJ and then the love and the respect thing,
Gotcha.
you
So he
know?
so he had some so he had some hands in on No Limit when No Limit got started or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, from what I understand, yeah, he was a part of No Limit whenever they started. Yeah, that's what I've been told. Do I know facts on that, man? I can't really speak as if my dad had a full contract with Master P and No Limit, but he was involved at one point. See, Murder was recording music with my dad too. So I mean that's another thing. You know what I'm saying? So I mean that right there tells you too. Okay, so he had to be plugged in some kind of way to get a no limit tank. You know what I'm saying? That's why I say, I got the picture from 2007 when he had the no limit chain, the no limit tank on. He had his AQP drop letter chain and he had his Tyson production chain. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he had to be plugged in some way, with no limit. But I know more on the AQP side than the no limit side. I just know he got the chain and he was fucking with the dudes, and it was a lot of respect. It was they respected him. That's another Quick Productions was the legal name. The street term was another quarter pound. That's what was that was what was in the streets in New Orleans.
I remember Tyson was popping in the city. Nayo and them was dropping the beats over there for Juve and shit. It used to go down. That's when BTY Young first started getting popping.
That's where Flip It came from. That's where So Attracted came from. That's where Fifth Ward Weeby was recording that. He was doing some stuff over there. But yeah, obviously Juvenile, J Dog, Black Menace, Partners in Crime, S80, Be Assassin, all these dudes, Baby Boy.
You said when Juvie first when your dad start when your Juvie first linked with your pops, Juvie was broke, like he didn't have no
Yeah,
money.
man, yeah, Juvie
And
was
when he
broke,
left
man.
Cash Money,
When he left Cash Money, he wasn't getting paid, bro. He wasn't getting paid. That was the reason why he left Cash Money. That's not a secret. Everybody knows that that's the reason why he left Cash Money. That's why he started UTP because he fell out with Birdman and them because he wasn't getting paid. And that's when he started UTP. Then he owed Jubilee money from the lawsuit that he got. You know what I'm saying? When he came to my dad gave him 50 grand in the studio. And then people try to spin it for Juvenile's image. And they try to make it seem like, nah, Juve gave your dad 50,000 for a studio for him to be able to put a studio inside the club. Nah, that wasn't really how that happened. Juvenile pulled up in a red Ford Taurus back then. He used to pull up to the club in a red Ford Taurus. Yeah, he wasn't pulling up in nothing crazy, nothing fancy, none of that shit. He wasn't really doing it back then like that when he left Cash Money. That's why he needed the money. He needed the money. He needed help. His cousin was even in alive. Even she was even co-signing. She even said the same thing. She even said that that's true. That's facts. That's when they was, that was when it was working together. That's whenever Juvie was coming out with the Cocky and Confident album. My dad was the executive producer for Cocky and Confident, but they waited to release it to after he was already gone, and they took his name off the album. That was back when we had the hard CDs with the you know what I'm saying, the where it would open up and then you close it. Yeah, my dad's name was on the back of it as an executive producer. That was the very first original copy of Cocky and Confident. Now you don't see that nowhere. That's why you got, Partners in Crime. That's why you got Kango on there. You got I don't know if J Dog ended up on there, but Partners in Crime definitely was on there with the We Be Getting Money with Shorty Low and a lot of that. That's why Juvenile was on a lot of stuff with J Dog.
What happened that they wouldn't put his name on there? Because when I listened to the interview, the first interview, it just seemed like they initially they were tight, but then the love wasn't genuine or something. I mean, I don't know if you can get into that, but
I mean, it was all about money, man. At the end of the day, it was all about money. What really started getting everything going was, Gene Nelson from Atlantic. Him and my dad was getting real close. Gene Nelson. He used to be the vice president of Atlantic Records. Gene Nelson and my dad was going to get tattoos together and all that shit like that. He was getting ready to fly him out to New York, and have him sign a $2.5 million deal. So here, how that all started was Atlantic only wanted Insane, J Dog's cousin. But J Dog didn't want that. Nobody wanted that. My dad, being the businessman that he wanted a label deal. You know what I'm saying? He didn't want to just have one artist signed and not the whole thing. So my dad was really trying to get AQP/UTP signed to Atlantic Records at a label deal. So he ended up working that deal out and was getting $2.5 million to do it from Gene Nelson. Right? And then that's when everything went sideways. That's when everything went sideways.
when you say when things went sideways, what happened?
Where people are thinking that, they're not going to get cuts, they're not going to get paid, they're not going to get this. Everybody's, feeling some type of way because they didn't realize that my dad was getting a label deal and they was thinking Insane was, coming in and getting signed to Atlantic Records. Right? So really, when you break it down, the president of AQP at the time that all that was going down was J Dog. Okay? J Dog and Juvenile was super close because J Dog and Juvenile was running the studios in the club for a while. All right, so them two was coming. They was coming click tight. All right, so next thing you know, you got $2.5 million on the table. Who's the next person in line to get the money? If my dad ain't there to do it, who's next in line? It would be the president of the company. You see what I'm saying? And who's next in line underneath my dad? It would have been J Dog. Because he was the president of AQP, and AQP was getting signed to a label deal for $2.5 million from Gene Nelson.
Tyson just disappeared. I just found out Tyson died. So now,
Crazy.
since I found out that Tyson died, his son was telling me some interesting shit about all the things that went down when his daddy died.
So what actually happened to your dad, bro? Did you guys find him, or was it? How did you guys find out? Was it reported on the news, or
Nah, we had got a call. We got a phone call from like, he's not my blood cousin, but he's my cousin. You know what I'm saying? Because he was living with my dad. The business partner was at everybody was at the house. The business partner, the ex-girlfriend, all of them was at the house. My cousin was at the house. Um, and then, allegedly, my cousin said he was in the room when everything happened, so he didn't see nothing. You know what I'm saying? But that don't make no sense because he also told me that he had to help my dad use the bathroom. He had to hold his itch so he can piss because he couldn't even, he wasn't even coherent enough to be able to go to the bathroom because he was so drugged up.
nobody called an ambulance?
That's what I said. That was my next question to my cousin. I said, so let me ask you this. You had to hold my dad's dick to piss. Why you didn't call an ambulance, you know what I'm saying, to get some help? Because obviously at that point, something's wrong. Right? You know what I'm saying? Oh, well, I didn't know how serious it was. So you telling me you didn't know how serious it was, yet you had to hold his dick for him to piss. You couldn't even get him up the stairs to his bedroom, so you laid him on the couch downstairs, right? But you didn't know it was that serious, right? So that's the crazy thing. So Joe left. Joe left the house. He went back in his room. Next thing you know, and people say J Dog was at the house, Joe was at the house, my cousin Richie was at the house, and his ex Tara was at the house. So allegedly, and here this is where everything it gets crazy because apparently the doctor was trying to sleep with my dad's fiance Tara. Okay, he was also Joe was trying to be more was trying to partner up with J Dog for money for more money and shit. That's why Joe signed everything over to J Dog before he got locked up with the feds for the pill mill. Okay. And the next thing you know, my dad ends up dead, but there's a $2.5 million deal on the table and $1 million insurance policy. And the case never got closed, it stayed open. So
Who got that money? Who got the insurance money?
that's what we want to know. But I'm gonna assume Joe, because when you look at court records and you look at court documents for all the stuff that he got going on, you can see all the transactions, and it's well over $1 million going in and out of bank accounts.
Say what was the cause of death, bro? What they say the cause of death was?
They said it was a gunshot wound. At first, they said they put it as a self-inflicted gunshot wound and a drug overdose. That was the first thing. Then it got reopened. All right, because when you really look at it, right, he had 50 somas in his system. 25 of them was digested. He also had some shit in his system that can only be given through an IV from a doctor, right? So when they really looked at it, they're like, okay, here, there ain't no way that this was self-inflicted. So then they changed the case to open. The dude, I don't know if you heard about the pill mill from the pain clinic.
But yesterday, that wasn't the case when local, state, and federal authorities seized files, records, and computers as part of their investigation into pill mills.
Because I mean, that was a big thing in Metairie. It was a big story. That was Dr. Joe. That was the business partner. He finally got caught up with the pill mill. So when he got caught up with the pill mill, he had NOPD working for him. The cop that was working for him, that was getting paid cash under the table and was getting paid in favors from one of the ladies that worked in the office. You know what I'm saying? He came out and he started exposing everything. He came out and exposed how he marked he knew that Joe, these people, or he did this or he did that. He knew about Joe little boys taking them to Amsterdam. He knew a lot, bro, and he exposed all of it. Okay, and obviously that's him exposing because he ain't trying to go to he not trying to go to jail. He's trying to cover himself. So next thing you know, Buddy ends up dead. They let him after he goes and he says everything he says. They let him go home so he could say bye to his wife and all that other shit before he had to turn himself in on that Monday morning, right? Buddy ends up dead. Buddy ends up dead the next day.
You talking about Joe?
No, Joe didn't die. The cop that worked for Joe, because Joe had NOPD on his payroll. Okay, but the cop that was working with him for the pill mill, the cop that was working with him for the pill mill is the same cop that came and signed the paper that said my dad killed himself. Okay, to close the case, because what they was trying to do was if they marked it as a suicide, they could close the case, right? They don't got to look at nothing because now it's a suicide, it's over with, right?
Right.
But if it's not a suicide, now they got to question everybody that's in the house. Who was everybody that was in the house? It was Tara, it was Joe, my cousin Richie, and they said J Dog was there. All right, so now they got to question all of them, right?
Right.
Joe couldn't have that kind of heat on him because of the shit that he had going on at the for the Omni clinics, right? So the only thing that they could do was they could mark it as a suicide, try to close the case, and move on with life, right? Well, that cop
Right.
exposed all of it. The cop exposed all of it before he allegedly killed himself. Okay, the cop exposed it all. That's what brought a lot of this shit back to light. And then my dad's mom had paid for another autopsy and all that other stuff. So I really don't know how all that stuff worked out, but I know she paid like She spent anywhere between 25 to 50,000 to get everything re-looked at, reopened up, redone. Okay, that's when they found the injections through the toes, like right between the toes. They found injections from a needle. Okay, which only can be done. You have to use a needle. The medicine that was in the system wasn't an over-the-counter medicine. It also wasn't anything that you could just buy, and just drink like some NyQuil or some Robitussin or Tylenol. Nah, it was a prescribed. It was a medicine that can only be given through an IV by a doctor.
Mm.
Okay, so that's when they were like, okay, so Joe drugged him. Okay, my dad had knee problems and back problems, so yeah, he took some somas, but for him to have 50 somas in his system and about 25 of them to only digest, that shit don't make no sense. That sound more like somebody forced the somas down his throat to make it look like he was gonna overdose. Now here, if anybody knows what a soma is a muscle relaxer. So if you take two or three of them, you're not about to be able to move or do nothing because you're gonna be in what's called a soma coma. You're gonna be asleep. So answer me this, how you get up off the couch after you just had to have somebody hold your dick so you could take a piss, right? How you get off the couch and walk to the kitchen, reach up into a cabinet, grab a gun and shoot yourself. Mind you, we're talking about a man that couldn't even get up to go to the bathroom, right?
Right.
That's what we're talking about. So how you telling me a man that couldn't even get up and go to the bathroom, couldn't even hold his own to take a piss, and I don't even know if I'm supposed to be cursing on here or not, but you know what I'm saying? If we that's what we talking about here. That's what we talking about here. Tell me how a man that's that messed up gonna do what they trying to say he did, bro. It's impossible. You're not gonna tell me, bro. There ain't no way you're gonna convince me that my dad was able to walk to the kitchen, reach up, okay, grab a gun, and then shoot himself in the head. You ready for some more? You ready for something that's gonna really fuck you up? Tell me why the autopsy said he ain't had no gun residue on his hands.
Mm.
Tell me why the autopsy said that my dad didn't have no gun residue on his hands, but he shot himself, right?
Right.
That don't make no sense, right? Because if you got a gun in your hand and you shooting it, you're gonna get gun residue on you, right?
Right.
You ready for
Right.
this? Tell me why they had 3 holes in the ceiling at the house. Why they had one? Why they had one in the closet and 2 on the ceiling? Tell me why there was 3 different bullet holes in the house, but there was only
Mm.
1 hole in my dad's head. So you telling me he just shot the closet and shot the ceiling and then shot himself, but yet still ain't got no still ain't got no gunpowder residue on his hands. Another thing, at my dad's funeral, I seen Dr. Joe at the funeral. You know what the first thing he said to me was?
What's
Did
that?
your dad love me? Did your dad love me? I said, what? He said, did your dad love me? I said, what you mean, bro? I said, yeah, my dad looked at you like a brother. What do you mean? He said, I'm sorry, I never meant for this to happen like this. And here, man, I was 16 years old. My dad was killed 5 days after my birthday. We were getting ready to do the show on MTV, or not MTV Cribs, on MTV My Super Sweet 16 with Shadow, that was the producer of My Sweet 16. Cause that was one of my dad's friends who was gonna shoot the Sweet 16 at the club, at the venue, for me and my brother.
Yeah.
And my dad was gonna give me the red Viper, gonna give my brother the black Viper. It was gonna be a whole little thing. You know what I'm saying? And then boom, all this happened. And then you're gonna tell me at the funeral, did your dad love me? I never meant for this to even happen this way. You think somebody gonna make something up like that, bro? You think those words gonna stick with me forever?
Mm.
Those words gonna stick with me forever. You know what's crazy is that if nobody did nothing, why they all disappeared? Why they all disappeared? If nobody did nothing, why they all disappeared, bro? Why they didn't fuck with none of us no more after that? Cause they was cool with my aunt. Oh yeah, Juvie was cool with my aunt. Everybody was cool with my aunt. But they ain't fuck with none of us no more after all this shit happened. They went in, stole the Ferraris, the Vipers, locked us out of the club so we couldn't get our stuff out or get my dad's stuff out. Uh J Dog had NOPD show up and escort my aunt out of the building. That way, she couldn't go in there to get anything out. Yeah, man, my aunt can give you the rundown on the whole thing, bro. They went in, took everything. Hey, look, one of them even shaved in my dad's bathroom. Tell me why they wouldn't even run DNA to see who shaved.
Damn. How did they steal the cars? They had keys to them?
Yeah, I mean they went into my dad's house. They all went in. They went into both houses. My dad had two houses. He had one in Stonebridge on the West Bank, and he had the one on across the river on Florida Lee.
Say, bro, how did your life change as a result of everything after that?
Man, my life changed dramatically. Man, I went from having, I went from I'm a perfect example from going from having it all to having nothing. I'm a perfect example of you know, going from having a full family to not even, really having a family because the whole family separated after everything happened because my dad was the glue to the family. And after my dad was gone, everything changed. So everybody kind of went their own ways. Everybody tried to get a little piece of everything, but then when they realized that they couldn't get nothing, they all kind of went their own direction. So it kind of
Right.
tore, what I mean, it tore my whole family apart, truthfully. And like I said, man, I went from being that kid and that dude that had everything to having nothing. You know, riding around in Vipers and Ferraris and Lamborghinis and limos and Hummers, walking into 1.5, $2.5 million houses, sitting in a movie theater inside the house to watch a movie, going out, cookouts with the family and everybody else, to doing none of that no more. Nothing. Everything's different.
Did you ever bounce back from it and create your own situation to where you're comfortable now?
Yeah, man. I did, man, because I always say, what I'm saying, my dad ain't gonna want me to be here, you know, uh, not not living the way I should be living. You know what I mean? It took me a while, bro. I ain't gonna lie, man. I was, I had a real bad issue after my dad died because that was my best friend. You know what I mean? And that was, that was my right, my left hand. That was my dude. That was my heart. You know.
Gotcha.
So I mean, I did some things that locked me up. Not not in jail or nothing, but I had to go and do a couple 72-hour bids, to get my mind right because I wasn't mentally stable because I was losing my mind behind all of this. Because as a kid, you know what I'm saying, thinking, why would my dad kill himself? You know, why would my dad tell me he loved me all the time? And why would my dad call me and do all this stuff for me and show me how much he loved me? And the next he just kills himself. That'll fuck a kid up. You know what I'm saying? That'll really fuck a kid up. But see, as I got older, I started really thinking about it, started really putting pen to paper, really looking into the whole situation and with everything going on. And here, man, I've heard 1,000 different stories about how my dad died. I heard the whole, he killed himself. I heard the whole J Dog shot him. I heard Juvenile set him up. I heard my dad's own bodyguard Chico went in there and set him up. You know what I mean? I mean I heard all of it, dog. Everybody's story is different, but what's crazy? What's crazy is there's always one side of the story that's the truth and the rest is lies. And then there's always that middle ground where the story will eventually start to puzzle itself together off of all the lies. And you'll be able to piece everything together. And that's where it's at. And here, bro, I'm thankful for OG Murder. And I'm thankful for getting on YouTube. And see, I wasn't even really a big YouTube person, bro. You know, I run two businesses. I got my own. I got my own house, my own cars. You know what I'm saying? I got a 3-story crib for myself. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm doing it, and I want them to know like I'm doing it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I'm doing it. I'm doing well. I'm doing very well for myself. This ain't about no, I want a feature. This ain't about no, oh, I'm just trying to clout chase. This ain't about no, oh, I'm just trying to get a rapper's attention because, hey, man, look, I don't need none of that shit. I don't need a feature. I
Say,
don't
bro, saying that too. But I want to say for the people who say, well, why he wait all this time, like all these years to come to say it today? What's your response to
because
that?
I was always told I couldn't talk about it. I was always told to be quiet. I was always told to just, let it go and let my dad rest. You know what I'm saying? I was always told, you gotta watch what you say, you gotta watch how you do it, you're gonna get killed. They're gonna send people to kill you, la la la. You know, man, guess what, man? I got God with me and my dad's watching over me. And at the end of the day, I know that if the shoes were on the other foot, my dad would be doing the same thing for me right now. So, and I'm gonna do the same thing for him. And I'm gonna get down to the bottom of it because the truth is, bro, we talking about millions of dollars here. And we talking about rappers that didn't have shit. That's what we talking about. And we talking about people that was trying to be real slick and real shady all the way from the jump. Washing money through the club to getting insurance policies on people to rappers not having none, but rappers wanting it. Rappers hating on their own family because Atlantic want to sign somebody else and not them. Come on, man. Juvenile losing everything from Cash Money, having to start over from nothing. And we're not, like I said, man, there's something bigger to the whole picture, bro. And I'm just gonna bring light to the situation. And you know what? If I'm gonna die on the way to do it, I'm gonna die on the way to do it. And that'll just prove that, hey, bro, the dude speaking facts. That's why he was now. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Cause not
Yes, sir, man.
now they have
I
no
appreciate the courage too, bro.
the only way they're gonna get me to stop, they're gonna have to silence me, bro. Cause I'm coming with the truth, bro. I'm coming with the facts, and my family's right behind it. And like I said, man, the only reason that it took so long for me to stand up and say something about it is just because I'm at an age now where I feel like I ain't gotta hold my tongue for nobody, and I'm not worried about if I'm gonna die or if I'm gonna live or any of that because I'm gonna live day by day anyway. My kids know that I love them, and at the end of the day, if somebody gonna kill me for speaking the truth, then that's because they can't live with it.